Today, we'll explore a topic that, regrettably, is rather common in many people's daily lives, are manipulated by this type of harmful social influence, demonstrates how people or organizations employ deceptive methods to acquire command and the upper hand over others. Manipulation can happen in a number of domains of life, including the job, intimate relationships, or even big social groups. Therefore, comprehending and considering these strategies is not merely a means of preserving individual autonomy while simultaneously encouraging healthier and more open relationships. It's crucial to develop self-defense skills, and to do that, we shall investigate the most extreme forms of deception and understand that all information is unbiased, because it depends on the user to offer it a purpose. Thus, keep in mind that these strategies are ominous, and this, the idea, is for you to become knowledgeable about how to defend yourself against them rather than using them against other people. An instrument that can be utilized to commit or produce a beautiful work. Wicked, thus you should apply all the knowledge you learn from this movie sensibly, whether for personal growth or self-defense. We'll comprehend how deception frequently creeps into our lives without our knowledge, and we'll demystify these methods, not just to identify them, but also to provide ourselves with the resources we need to combat them by the end. I can assure you that you will be better equipped to confront the world with a sharper mind and a more critical eye. Is the most sinister aspect of the W's of manipulation. Please leave a like and subscribe to the Before We Begin channel. It saves you money and greatly benefits us. Let's get music. Began triangulation at position 1. This is a subtle but using 3 sources strong manipulation technique that entails bringing in a third party, a dynamic relationship that divides, tensions, or confuses This third person is used by the manipulator as a technique to exert control and destabilize the current partnership or deflect scrutiny from their own dubious. The manipulator may use triangulation to pit one action against another, such as sharing misrepresented or private information between the parties, or by utilizing a third party to support their own claims and sentiments that denigrate the other side, which might cause the victims to question their own views and emotions, which isolates them and increases their reliance on the manipulator, like in a family in which a parent may disparage one child to another in an effort to forge an alliance with the second, abandoning the first alone and uneasy at work. Bosses may spread unfavorable rumors about one person to another, inciting competition and mistrust between triangulation damages confidence, which is why it is especially harmful, and open lines of communication between the parties, enabling the manipulator to keep power and don't take accountability for disagreements or miscommunications caused by this strategy. Frequently yourself caught up in a loop of miscommunications and confrontations without completely comprehending the source of the manipulator's involvement in these triangulation countering issues, needs acknowledging the strategy of direct and truthful communication between the parties having a strong sense of personal boundaries and being exploited. It's essential to challenge the accuracy of the information you've been given, ask the other parties directly for explanations, and decline to engage in discussions or take part in activities that promote divisiveness or double bind. This is a psychological problem, bind logical trick, wherein the subject is presented with 2 options that contradict one another or with opposing signals, such that using this strategy, people will always be wrong or at a disadvantage, regardless of the choice they make, to control and perplex the target, leaving them feeling helpless, perplexed, and nervous. Since there isn't a good or appropriate solution in these circumstances, the manipulator could convey demands or expectations that are mutually exclusive, such as when a parent criticizes a child for not being forthcoming and talkative, But when the youngster does attempt to communicate their emotions, they are chastised for being excessively sensitive or impolite in this instance. The child finds themselves in a difficult situation because they face consequences for speaking up. Yet if they stay quiet, they are also chastised for the double bind that can happen in partnerships when one person may express to their partner their desire for greater independence, but they may act irritated or aloof when a partner spends time alone. The manipulator's victim is confused and uneasy about how they should behave, because everything they do seems to have a negative. This kind of manipulation is especially sneaky because it challenges the person's capacity to believe in their own judgment and sense, which can result in a persistent self-doubt and low self-esteem, which increase reliance on the It's crucial for manipulators to understand that a double bind is a manipulation trap rather than a reflection of one's own incapacity or failure to ask reliable people for assistance. In addition, friends, therapists, or counselors can assist the victim in validating their own thoughts and emotions. Establishing firm boundaries and using aggressive language are essential defense mechanisms against this number 3 manipulation type. Projection is a manipulation forecasting method where the manipulator assigns blame for their own shortcomings, emotions, or unsuitable intents toward the target, which happens when the manipulator is unwilling or unable to accept responsibility for their own failings or bad actions, and instead transfers them to the other person, causing them to feel doubtful or guilty about what they did, or the victim's reality is distorted by this protection mechanism, which makes them doubt their own senses and to feel accountable for issues or sentiments that, in reality, belong to the manipulator, such as jealousy. One spouse may accuse the other of flirting or being disloyal when, in fact, projection enables the accuser, who is the one experiencing these ideas or actions, to manipulate her to shift focus away from their own shortcomings and assign accountability to the victim frequently. Making people feel unjustifiably defensive, perplexed, or guilty might erode the victim's sense of self-worth and heighten their emotional reliance on the manipulator. When they encounter projection, demands the victim to hold on to a strong sense of self and boundaries. It's critical that the individual understand when they're the object of this strategy and refrain from absorb the baseless charges while documenting their own ideas and sentiments and requesting input from relying on reliable sources and engaging in self-affirmation exercises are beneficial tactics. In addition, it is crucial to combat projection manipulation. For the victim to understand how to set boundaries and emotionally separate from the manipulator refusing to take responsibility for issues or emotions that, in severe circumstances, may be. It is essential to break off relationships or get professional help to deal with the fallout from this type of time pressure is the 4th manipulation technique, and it's utilized to time restraint, make the victim feel compelled to act quickly by inflating the sense of urgency. The manipulator asserts that urgent action is required to prevent unfavorable outcomes or that a special chance is about to pass, and this strategy takes advantage of people's dread of losing anxiety, cutting down on the victim's time to reflect, investigate, or speak with others. Viewpoints, for instance, this tactic is frequently employed in high-pressure sales where the vendor maintains that a deal is only valid for a short period of time or that only a select few things stay, but it may also be observed in interpersonal and professional relationships. For example, when someone requests an prompt answer to a major request or places an unjustifiable, the influenced person under time pressure to make a crucial decision may wind up making snap judgments, frequently to their own cost and the manipulator's advantage. False hurry keeps the victim from considering all of their options, consulting outside sources, or just paying attention to. In order to counter this strategy, it's critical to identify when someone is attempting to control time in order to affect your choice. It's critical to request time to reflect and resist, giving in to the pressure to take action right away, and to keep in mind that not all decisions actually need to be made right away. It's important to remember that pressure to act quickly is a sign of manipulation, and that waiting for further information, emergencies that could lead to a more well-informed and equitable decision-making process. Number 5. Inconsistency and unpredictability and inconsistency. When someone uses the manipulation technique of unpredictability, they act erratically and unpredictable, which can lead to. This behavior might range from extremes to the victim's uncertainty and unease, like being kind 1 minute and icy or contemptuous the next. This conduct pattern appears to be unmotivated, as it maintains the victim in a feeling of confusion and unease, since they are unable to foresee or comprehend the behaviors of the manipulator. In abusive partnerships, this strategy is frequently employed by the abuser shifts between being nice and nasty, resulting in an emotionally unstable atmosphere in which the victim's desire for love or acceptance and an attempt to comprehend the manipulator's actions may yourself caught up in a never-ending cycle of trying to win over the manipulator. Never reaching contentment or stability, unpredictability is efficient, since it takes advantage of people's need for stability and consistency. When their actions don't adhere to a rational or consistent pattern, it becomes challenging for others to adjust or react suitably, which can lead to a condition of psychological and emotional reliance on the manipulator, who seems to be the only source of comfort or relief, that seems to be the only one available for dealing with inconsistency and unpredictability. It's critical that the victim identify the manipulator's behavioral pattern and recognize that it is not their duty to continuously rectify or, in order to satisfy the other, it's imperative to set and uphold clear boundaries. Maintaining emotional distance from the manipulator while also asking friends, family, or experts for assistance can give the viewpoint and assistance required to deal with this type of manipulation, re-establish self-worth. And here, the manipulator takes advantage of emotional blackmail as independence. Number 6. Blackmailing someone emotionally, another person's feelings, in order to achieve their goals. Typically, this entails instilling a sense of duty, dread, shame, or shame in the target, causing them to behave contrary to their own principles or interests. Abuse of the emotional blackmail target in order to appease the manipulator's demands. Relationship between the parties. The manipulator could imply either overtly or covertly that their pleasure, love, or well-being is contingent upon the victim's creation of common instances of situations when the victim feels accountable for the manipulator's emotional state. Phrases like, "If you really loved me, you would do this," are examples of emotional blackmail. Remarks such as, "I can't believe you would let me do this alone," impose not only a false sense of duty, but also instill a sense of shame or fear of losing something to cope with emotional. Establishing and upholding clear limits. Recognizing when blackmail is occurring, and in order to communicate assertively, you must state your demands and sentiments without letting responsibility, guilt, or fear control your behavior, and reinforce self-worth, and looking for outside assistance such as from friends, family, or additionally, experts may be necessary to bear the strain and preserve your own agency. Number 7. Gaslighting. When someone is gaslighting, they may fervently dispute certain events as true or fabricate information. They could also minimize the victim's emotions in order to refute their recollections. calling their responses bizarre or irrational, or using confidential information to discredit them, which causes the sufferer to continuously evaluate themselves and look for outside approval. In this kind of manipulation can happen in interpersonal interactions, at work, or in more general settings such as politics or the media. The effect of gaslighting is severe, resulting in despair, anxiety, and a loss of confidence, one's own recollections and perceptions, resisting deception, and entails enhancing self-belief and self-perception. This may entail maintaining a documentation of discussions or occurrences, looking for outside viewpoints to confirm reality, and setting up clear limits with the manipulator in instances where it might be essential to withdraw oneself from the poisonous circumstance, acknowledging and identifying. Additionally, the experience is vital since it gives the sufferer more authority and lessens the false social control number 8 for manipulators. Phony social acceptance. Acceptance is a deception tactic in which the deceiver acts as though or overstates the degree of endorsement, agreement, or approval received from others. In order to sway the victim in this situation, the manipulator could make up tales, falsify information, or fabricate a consensus to persuade the victim that a specific viewpoint, a product or behavior that is more acceptable or popular than it. In actuality, this strategy takes advantage of people's propensity to follow social conventions. As pursue social acceptance, people frequently change their beliefs, attitudes, or actions to conform to what they believe to be the consensus of the group, particularly when things are unclear or when overt social pressure is present through the imitation of widespread acceptability. Support the manipulator can lead the victim to believe that they are joining by taking a particular course of action. The majority and choosing what is right or popular, for instance, in the use of phony client testimonials in advertising, is one way to demonstrate this, as is the assertion that when there is no hard proof of a product's effectiveness in personal connections, a manipulator may erroneously assert that everyone believes or says something to coerce the victim into complying or defending against untrue societal acceptance. It's imperative to cultivate critical thinking skills and consider the veracity of statements about acceptance or popularity is something you should look for prior to embracing assertions of consensus. Obtain solid and trustworthy proof and preserve faith in one's own opinions and assessments, even if doing so involves defying the presumptive majority's recognition and comprehension. People can make more genuine decisions and less fake ones thanks to this manipulation technique. Impacted by the need to live up to imagined or heightened social information suppression in accordance with norm number 9, information withholding is a tactic used in manipulation when one party purposefully withholds crucial or pertinent information from another party, seeking to sway judgments or opinions. This deceptive technique can drastically affect the victim's comprehension and actions as they are guided to make choices depending on an skewed or partial view of reality. This kind of deception can occur in a variety of settings, including as intimate partnerships and commercial transactions. And politics, for instance, a partner in a relationship might conceal details about their financial situation or previous relationships, influencing the dynamics of the relationship and the trust in the workplace. A superior or co-worker may leave out important project specifics, which hinders an employee's capacity to finish projects quickly, make wise decisions in sales or negotiation circumstances, wherein the product's faults or unfavorable terms are concealed, can result in the customer or the other negotiation party making a false decision. In the political arena, keeping pertinent facts from the public can affect public opinion and election results. To defend against information being concealed, one must be aware of this possibility, and using an inquisitive and probing manner, it's critical to verify information from several sources and pose specific questions. Ask inquiries, demand openness in all dealings and exchanges, and moreover cultivate. Not taking information at face value and exercising critical awareness might help you recognize when crucial information may be hidden, by realizing that withholding information is a tactic used to manipulate others. People can become more alert and less prone to being swayed by choices or viewpoints based on inaccurate or partial information. It's critical to understand the value of candid and open communication. To encourage more open and equitable interactions, the 10th fear is attachment. A fear of attachment. MIPs that use fear attachment frequently put their victims in a do-or-die situation, feel that if they don't cooperate, horrible things will happen. They can be subtle warnings or overt threats, hints, or the fabrication of unfavorable hypothetical situations. The intention is to make the victim feel as though they are forced to comply with or obey the manipulator to prevent the anticipated result. This tactic is seen in numerous settings, such as interpersonal connections, workplaces, marketing, and even in politics, where a spouse could utilize their fear of being abandoned to exert control the actions of others. Or a supervisor may suggest that a worker's job security depends based on their adherence to specific requirements in order to promote fear. Attachment utilized to persuade customers that they require a product in order to avert a risk or societal. Recognizing when fear is being utilized as a tactic of fear. Attachment is crucial in order to protect from shame manipulation, which could entail assessing oneself objectively, doubting the veracity of the threat's own decisions, seeking guidance or different viewpoints, and maintaining composure. Therefore, it's also important to avoid acting rashly while afraid. In addition to establishing networks of support and self-worth, to lessen vulnerability to manipulation based on fear, gaining a thorough knowledge of one's own boundaries and rights might support an individual in resisting attempts at deception. That developing coping mechanisms and resilience can also be helpful in managing fear. Managing fear in a constructive and proactive way lessens the influence the manipulator might have on the victim's 11th grade emotions and decisions. The blame game. Play the blame game. Typical manipulation technique in which the manipulator tries to absolve themselves of accountability for their own errors. This strategy tries to make the victim feel as though they are the victim's failures or actions, guilty even though they haven't done anything wrong, making them question their own abilities excessively, apologies, and even accept obligations that are not. Their manipulators deflect attention from their own by playing the blame game. Incorrect behavior while keeping things under control and avoiding the repercussions of their behavior by holding the victim accountable for unfavorable outcomes or circumstances under which the manipulator can continue to have authority and influence. This method can be detrimental to the victim's assertiveness and sense of self-worth. Seen in a variety of settings, like violent relationships, the job, or unhealthy family dynamics, such as a manipulative partner in a relationship. A couple could accuse the other of being jealous or acting irrationally, asserting that the victim's actions are what caused this response at work. A co-worker or superior could blame the victim for the project's failure. Even whether part of the blame is shared or falls solely on the manipulators to avoid accountability game, it's imperative to keep an objective perspective and refuse to take responsibility for circumstances that are plainly outside of their control or within the authority of someone else. Recognizing and rejecting unjust tasks is made easier by taking responsibility for enhancing self-awareness and self-esteem. Regarding responsibility, keeping a log of interactions and occurrences can be helpful in refuting unfounded claims and keeping an impartial viewpoint. In addition, it's critical to set boundaries with the manipulator and politely convey that the attempt to place the responsibility elsewhere is inappropriate, asking friends, relatives, or experts for assistance. Provide the sufferer affirmation and a different viewpoint to assist them. Break liberated from the manipulator. Number 12. Fake prayer praises impose cycle of shame. Untrue accolades. A manipulative tactic known as false praise involves the manipulator using praises to exert control and influence over the victim. This strategy is intended to win the victim's trust and cause them to decrease. Their false praise is frequently used to soften someone by making them feel guarded or obligated. Before making a request or to divert their attention from ulterior motives, expert manipulators praises to foster a nice environment and give someone a false sense of security when they feel appreciated or commended. They are more prone to desire to repay the favor or keep the good vibes going, which makes them more vulnerable to affect if the praises are meant for the beauty or intelligence, talents, or any other quality possessed by the sufferer. But unjustified acclaim is different from sincere. Remarks are driven by the desire to convey appreciation or gratitude, whereas genuine compliments are intended to thank you without expecting anything in return. Fake praise is meant to control or take something away from the person who has been praised. The manipulator might not accept what they are saying, but recognizes that encouraging words have the potential to be an effective technique for controlling or influencing behavior in order to prevent false praise. It's critical to learn how to recognize when a compliment is not being given in earnest by looking at the praiser's behavior pattern, the setting in which the remarks are given, and the consistency between the words and deeds of the person can reveal whether or not the compliments are sincere. Additionally, keeping a person with a strong sense of self-worth and who does not rely on outside approval can accept compliments without feeling overly impacted by them. Number 13. Becoming a victim. Victimization is a manipulation technique in which the manipulator poses as a victim of injustice, situations outside of their control or other people's circumstances. This tactic is used to elicit sympathy rather than accountability for their deeds and sway other people's conduct to their advantage by projecting an image of victim. Manipulators aim to arouse empathy and persuade people to take action. Concessions provide assistance or alter their attitudes and actions toward the manipulator. Because this kind of manipulation can be especially successful, appeals to people's innate desire to aid and shield the suffering or disadvantageous, but instead of being a genuine sign of distress, victimization is intentional in order to accomplish certain objectives, such distracting attention from improper actions, influencing those nearby, or obtaining resources, advantages, and victimhood can all be utilized to reverse the roles of the perpetrator and the victim, particularly following an error by the manipulator, or hurt someone by pretending to be the actual victim. The manipulator may even seek to make the true victim feel bad in order to escape the consequences of their conduct, and offer an apology to guard against being victimized by manipulation. It's critical to preserve equilibrium between objectivity and empathy, understanding when someone is going through a truly trying moment. It's vital to acknowledge that, but it's equally critical to evaluate the circumstances, particularly if victimization patterns start to show, useful for maintaining a balanced viewpoint and setting clear boundaries on the duties and deeds of each person. Participating number, willful silence. The 14 purposeful, quiet techniques of silence pertain to the deliberate application of silence, or an unwillingness to speak as a means of enforcing discipline or controlling others. This kind of control over someone is sometimes referred to as the silent treatment. It is particularly damaging since it invalidates the victim's emotional expression and fosters an atmosphere of strategy. The manipulator uses doubt, worry, and solitude, refuses to reply to messages, calls, or other attempts at communication. Frank conversations like this might make the victim feel vulnerable and rejected. When yearning for closure or an explanation, the manipulator aims to cause the target to doubt their own conduct, emotions, and value, making children take responsibility for the quiet and frequently apologize or make compromises even when they are not at fault. Be employed as a potent tool, since it takes advantage of people's need for approval and contact without comments or communication. The recipient may feel underappreciated and unseen, which can seriously impair their mental health and self-worth. To cope with strategies of silence, it's critical for the victim to understand that this is a psychological trick rather than a reflection of their own worth or shame. Upholding their integrity, external assistance, and voicing one's emotions honestly without pleading for paying attention are crucial actions, in addition to setting boundaries and, if required, to safeguard oneself. It is crucial to reassess the worth and sustainability of the relationship with the manipulator. Emotional health. Keep in mind that Stoic lessons like practicing the virtue of justice are crucial, comprises not just being fair and equitable to others, but also making sure that we are allowing no one to misuse our compassion or understanding. In the end, Stoicism instructs us to pursue wisdom and truth, which entails pursuing a thorough comprehension of circumstances and people's intentions. Avoid making snap decisions or decisions based solely on feelings if you've watched this far. To let us know that you watched the entire film, kindly leave a comment with your armored wisdom. I would also like to hear your thoughts on what you believe could be technique number 15. I look forward to your reply. See you shortly.